tonight. And now it's my pleasure to turn it back to Deborah, who has a very special guest for us.
Thanks, Scott. And yeah, I am so happy that when we asked this man to come on board that he agreed, because he really exemplifies the part of this show that's about solutions. And he's made a lifelong mission to study the world and study all about it and find out what can really help us thrive. You may know him from the movie that he put out with him and his beautiful wife, Kimberly. Foster Gamble is the co-creator of Thrive Movies, and which they published that movie a couple of years ago, and it was a massive consciousness raising film. It's one of those films that everyone had to see, and it really woke us up to new levels of what we didn't know about. And now he's just released Thrive 2, which is now all about solutions. So now that we know what's going on in the world, what do we do about it? He is a wealth of information. The movie is a must-see. We'll post the links in the chat box, and I'd really love to warm welcome with so my heart open, Foster Gamble.
Thank you, Deborah. It's really an honor and a privilege to get to participate with this group. I love the topic that you chose, especially for this week in our lives of unifying through compassion and solutions. And you guys have been such a lifeline to so many ever since the lockdown started. So I've enjoyed watching a lot of these shows, and it's great to get to share a little bit this time. So, okay, 10 minutes. I'm going to need to be very succinct, which is often a challenge for me. But here's my intention. What I want to do is create a little 10-minute time capsule, a hologram, if you will, for us to truly and ultimately move beyond our political polarity, not just in our meditations, but in our 3D civilization. If what I say interests you, you'll find a much fuller version in Thrive 1 and Thrive 2. But we'll give you a little trailer tonight. So one of the things that I've noticed is that whichever way any election goes, usually there's about 49% of the population who's really upset. In fact, dangerously disappointed. And this is not by accident, according to my research. We are being kept intentionally unstable. It's a lot easier to control people when they're afraid and unstable. So why do we settle for the lesser of two evils if by definition that's going to lead to evil? How many of us really think that we're going to solve the major problems that we're facing through politics? I actually asked that question to a large group that I was addressing recently, and the answer was hardly anyone. So it's quite a predicament that we're in when we're depending so much on politicians, and yet hardly anyone believes they're actually going to be able to solve the problems. So however any election goes, recovery, which is a lot of what the topic of tonight is about, is not, for me, about just going into our safe spaces and clutching our security blankets or going into denial, but it is about authentically feeling our feelings and finding our center, and then going full out to find and create the condition that truly transcends political divisiveness. So how in the world do we do that? Well, fortunately, especially for this group, I believe that it starts with consciousness. So the time that you've been putting in has been well spent. Because I believe consciousness allows us, the more we practice it, to hold the center energetically, no matter what's going on. And then as we move into our lives, to act without losing that center, without violating any other sovereign beings, and eventually without getting sucked into politics, which was specifically designed to divide us into teams fighting over the reins of coercive power over others for the benefit of the few controllers who really, in my research, control both sides, and they have for centuries. So while most of the folks in this country were obsessed with a very suspicious pandemic and orchestrated civil unrest, we kind of missed the over $7 trillion in bailouts that the bankers gave themselves, putting them on the backs of us and our grandchildren. And we missed the infrastructure that's being put in place for a complete totalitarian control and surveillance. That's a big deal. It's a very well-planned distraction. So then what do we do next? Kimberly and I have found that all of the solutions that we've come across really lie in harmonizing with the unified field. And that's what Thrive 2 is about. That's why we say Thrive 2, starring the unified field. We are at a time in history, literally, when the unified field theory is actually coming out and being realized for the first time. And we had the honor of getting to reveal a lot of that and do the visual effects for it in Thrive 2. But it's not just theoretical. If it were a theory for physicists, oh, that's interesting, that's great, but so what? The reason we made Thrive 2 is that what we saw was that this emerging theory of oneness is also validated through the applications that we found and that we filmed in the form of multiple free energy devices, cures for cancer and other so-called incorrigible diseases, and maybe most importantly of all, a coherent ethical philosophy that can take us beyond the destructiveness of adversarial politics. That's why I was particularly thrilled to get to be on here tonight to at least say a few minutes about it. Now, all of these solutions that we've been finding and that inspired us to spend 1,000 days making this next movie, they're all based on resonance with the field. Now, I know this group knows a lot about the field. You know a lot about oneness. You've been immersed in this, most of you, for a long time. As we claim our natural right to true sovereignty, and Charles called this in his narrative on the Corona and conspiracy, he referred to this very true sovereignty. These solutions, which have been so suppressed in terms of our freedom, in terms of the energy devices, in terms of cures and so forth, they are getting liberated and will help us thrive. I got to say a line in Thrive 2, which is near and dear to my heart and very much apropos of what we're talking about tonight, which is that the real struggle is not between nations, races, genders, or classes, but between those who want to be free and those who would continue to steal our freedom from us. So I want to talk for a moment about authority. Now, just personally, my choice has been for a long time that I don't vote. I'm not saying that the vote doesn't matter. I'm saying I've chosen not to vote because the notion for me personally of endorsing our next slave master and the process of selecting our slave master is so repugnant to me that I would rather be a public stand against the myth that we need to be ruled than vote for the lesser of evils. Now, I know that may sound very new or disturbing to some people, but I guarantee you I've been looking into this intensely for 20 years. And no matter who wins an election, we're still all being ruled. And not just by a president and a party, but by the international cabal of would-be controllers who are duping humanity into an all-powerful technocratic fascism. So what gives them the power to do that? Well, to put it simply, they conned us into believing in the myth of authority and then use our buying into them ruling over us to turn right around and seize the right to print fake money that enriches them while robbing the rest of the world. So to counter this type of vast and really vicious agenda for global domination that has almost been completed, we need, I think, three main things. We need courageous truth media, of which we are all a part, and it's emerging like crazy despite the efforts to censor it. Secondly, we need a powerful protective force. And thirdly, we need vast wealth. And I'm thrilled to say that after 8 years of intensive research and travels to meeting the high-level people in the Asian Dragon Alliance and the US White Hats and so forth, I'm not going to go and try to explain all that. You can look it up on our website, or we mentioned a little bit in Thrive 2, and you can find out a lot about it on the internet. I can say that after 8 to 9 years of direct experience, these projects are very real, and they're very well intended, and they're very powerful. The Asian Dragon Alliance are the wealthiest people in the world by far, and they are committed by their own spiritual covenant to bringing that wealth to bear on rescuing the ecology of the planet and restoring the economy of the planet. And the White Hats, they're like the good guys in the institutions of the army and the government and the intelligence agencies and so forth. They're really ticked off at what has happened to the institutions that they joined out of good intentions. And they are very well organized. They don't want to start World War III, but they are emerging hand in hand with the Dragon Alliance to actually restore a sense of freedom, a sense of integrity to the Republic, and to reboot the global economy. So I didn't know this when we did Thrive 1. I was invited to travel to meet these people and get educated, and it's some of the best news I've ever come across. So a lot of us have been involved in becoming more conscious. But what is it that we need to become more conscious of? Well, the next thing I want to talk about is voluntarism. That may be a new word to a lot of you. And I believe first and foremost, what we need to do is get an effective answer to the question that many of the speakers have addressed tonight. How do we coexist when we disagree? And in my experience, only ethics takes us there. In traveling all over the world, Kimberly and I have asked a lot of people about a lot of things, and we've only found one thing that every single human being that we've met so far agrees to. So it's probably a pretty important thing. Well, what it is that they agree to is that they don't want to be violated against their will. So let that sink in for a minute. Think how hard it is to get, 3 family members to agree on where to go for dinner. Try to get the whole world to agree on anything. So the one thing they agree on is they don't want to be violated. So the answer to that is what's known as the non-aggression principle. And that simply means that no one is allowed to initiate force against anyone else except in true self-defense. Lori beautifully described this as honoring the sovereignty of each being. And I recall that Marianne referred to it as all men are created equal as long as you're not hurting anyone else. So there's a theme, and it's been around with the mystics for millennia, but it's only just arising as a cultural phenomenon. In the transition to real freedom and thriving, how do we get from here to there? We need to access the best of the left and the best of the right and the center and the libertarians on the way. This demands ethical coherence, which requires a universal morality. And I want to suggest that the non-aggression principle with individual accountability provides that compass that we have been missing throughout human history. And what the universal morality of non-violation leads to is you can't take people's money without their permission. You can't take their kids and send them off to some war that you had for your own reasons and so forth. It's really simple, even though we've missed it for the most part. So it leads to, by requirement, no taxation, which means no government, not just no big government, no government. You don't get to take people's hard-earned money against their will, even if you hire other people to do it. Actually, as I was listening tonight, I have a new political campaign I'm interested in. I want to elect Paul Draper president, and I want to give him 4 years to make authoritarian government disappear. I think if there's one guy who's capable of doing that, it's Paul. So what's the option? Instead of having government, we'll still have independent organizations. We'll have associations and clubs and institutes and leagues and businesses. We'll have independent dispute resolution organizations and independent insurance and peace officers and charities. We'll do all the things that government has said they're going to do and haven't done well. And we're going to allow independent people with their own motivations to do it and compete with each other in the free market to do the best job while holding to the integrity of the non-aggression principle. Someone in the chat I noticed during the call tonight said, we need a whole new system. But I want to caution you, systems are always imposed. I propose we need a new condition, and it's a condition of true freedom where no one has rights that everyone else doesn't have. And currently politicians and bankers are an exception to that, and that's the problem. So this is called voluntarism. And I believe voluntarism is the missing basis for a universal morality. Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And we're not there yet. We've gone from the pharaohs to the priests and the dictators and the kings and all that. We've gone more and more toward individual freedom, but we're not there yet. Even if democracy were honest, it's still mob rule. So you get 49% people pissed off. So I asked the same audience that I referred to before, who do you think should rule? One person, a small group of people, a majority, or do you think we should rule ourselves as long as we don't violate any other, as Marianne said? Well, over 90% of the people in a very large audience said, we want to rule ourselves. We want protective rules, but not rulers. So there's lots of clues pointing in the same direction here. Voluntarism is not the traditional ism. It's not conservatism, liberalism, progressivism, communism, fascism, socialism, libertarianism. All of those are systems of coercion. But it is voluntary association, voluntary exchange, non-aggression, and owning ourselves. The evidence is actually there, if you look carefully throughout history, that the more this is allowed, the more secure, the more prosperous, and the happier a culture is. This, in my opinion, is what gets rid of civil wars. You know, a lot of you probably know the famous excerpt from a poem by Rumi that says, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. I totally honor Rumi's vision, and I want to suggest a timely adaptation of that. It goes like this. We are all in the field. We can meet beyond right and left, where only our rights are left. The rights to own ourselves, our rightly gained property, and the right to not be violated by anyone. So to close, I think what matters most is each of us standing for everyone's freedom. As with slavery, people didn't know how an economy could possibly work without slavery, but it was ended because it was the right thing to do. In the same way as with slavery, history and morality have shown us that everything else depends on starting with that freedom. And my lifetime quest has convinced me that for an advanced technological civilization like ours to survive, much less to thrive, it must outgrow the myth of authority and leave all politics in the rearview mirror. For me, this is the liberation of solutions and love. Thank you very much for your listening.
Oh, thank you so much, Foster. And I want to give people a few ways that they can get a lot more of you. First of all, everybody needs to see Thrive 2. And so it's pretty easy to do that. You go to thriveon.com. That's thriveon.com. And you can play the trailer if you want to get a better sense of the film first. But then please subscribe. I immediately subscribed at the $10 a month level. You can buy or rent the movie or the DVD, but I really want to encourage people, please, let's all subscribe so that there's an ongoing flow of money so that Foster and his team, his beautiful wife, can continue to come up with solutions, to come up with updates. I mean, they are really out there, and there's so much information that they've gathered that we need to know, from free energy to all the different things you're seeing as I go down here. So let's all subscribe to what they're doing. And I also wanted to find out a little bit more. Foster, tell us a little bit more about what I'm really just seeing for the first time now. Tell us about the Freedom Portal. What's that all about?
Well, the Freedom Portal is really my passion. I don't think I'll make another feature-length movie in my lifetime, but I do want to be in this freedom conversation till my last breath. So we have just recently opened an aperture to the world, similar to what you've done here, for communications both ways. And the purpose of it is to provide people with the information and with the opportunity to interact and move into action to actually create a condition of freedom on the planet. The subtitle of the Freedom Portal is "There is light at the end of the rabbit hole." And we go all the way to the center of the deceptive agendas. And then we come out the other side to the principles and the strategies, the facts and the evidence to actually to reach the solutions and the freedom and the light that's at the other end. So we're also about to launch our new Solutions Hub. We've already got over 1,100 groups in 90 plus countries around the world who are working in their own self-created way, inspired by Thrive, on various solutions. And we're bringing that all to our new website. And we've got a whole new hub, a solutions hub that's going to be in 40 languages. And it's free and provides everybody a way to learn how to get really effective in your own, realizing your own purpose and direction and goals. And then we have an infrastructure by which you can find other people, either locally or regionally or anywhere in the world by issue. And then all sorts of processes by which to collaborate effectively that we have found really work with groups that we've coached all over the world. So if you want to get involved in the conversation, and if you want to get involved in effective action, then come to thriveon.com, check out the Freedom Portal after you've seen the movies. And then within the next few weeks, we'll have the Solutions Hub up to serve everyone.
Fantastic. Well, definitely we will continue to track all that you're doing and let people know in our network. And thank you so much, Foster. Thank you for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.
Special evening. God bless you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, there's another wonderful leader in our field who I actually met through Deborah. That's one of the great things about what we do is we get to meet so many amazing people. And Neil Gaur is the founder and creator of Portal to Ascension. He has really done a terrific job. He just had a terrific conference that I was absolutely glued to it. There's so many new speakers I learned about through his conference. And Neil's with us tonight. And in addition to being the founder of Portal to Ascension, he produces workshops and seminars, and he's also a poet. And so we're going to now turn it over and get a chance. And this guy's usually behind the scenes. He's running the cameras. He's making the workshops happen. But this is a chance for us to really kind of drop in to some of the creative expression from our dear friend, Neil Gaur.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, Deborah. Hello, everybody. So nice to be here with you all. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Portal to Ascension, but I don't think I have time for that. So I'll leave that to Deborah and Scott at the end. But just real quick, Portal to Ascension, create around 100 to 110 events a year at this point. Have a full-on online university with 10,000 hours plus of footage. If you're interested in receiving thousands of hours of free footage, similar to the way Netflix is laid out, categories, topics, all that stuff, portaltoascension.org. But my truest passion, one of my true passions, I guess, is definitely rapping and spoken word poetry. I've been doing that since 2008, and I do this at a lot of events, a lot of spiritual events. I perform, but I always forget to plug where people can learn more about my spoken word and poetry. You can go to youtube.com/MC Resonance, M as in Mary, C as in cat, Resonance, or you can go to Instagram, MC_resonance there. And on my YouTube, I'm all over the world at different ancient sites performing spoken word, like the Yucatan pyramids and Peru and a lot of other places. So it's pretty fun to watch. And what I'm going to do today is, this event is about unity, and Portal to Ascension is synonymous to unity consciousness and to bring forward that singularity in a world of duality. And we've seen the division is hardcore, and divide and conquer has definitely been a technique that has been used for ages, for thousands of years. So I'm going to do 2 spoken word pieces. One I created while I was on the train when I was taking my master's in England, and I was on the tube going to school. And I wrote this. It's called Political Spirituality. And I guess it's very fitting into now, because in the last 4 years, what have we noticed? All these spiritual people that had nothing to do with politics are now been politicized, right? So this is about Constantine and the Council of Nicaea and how they basically manipulated Christianity and changed the books, created their own gospel, if you will. And now that is basically the one that had been circulated. We can go into details on why and what happened, but that would be a whole lecture in itself. So I actually started creating spoken word poetry to convey entire lectures in one spoken word piece. I go really fast normally, so I'm going to try to go a little slow for everyone. But you can hear the story in it. The first verse is about the story of Constantine and what happened with the Council of Nicaea, and the second verse is about the bigger picture of what was happening since the beginning of creation that installed this division. And then the next poem I'm going to do is called Atlantis, and that's all about bringing us back to oneness. So it's kind of a journey, a cosmic journey of, you can even say, the political divide that's going on right now kind of stemmed from this first poem I'm going to do. If you want to, some people say Constantine's known as the first Illuminati because of what he did here. So we're going to go into this realm of consciousness and this realm of what happened with ancient religions. And then we're going to end with, the rising of Atlantis, the resurrection of the Christ consciousness within us right now. So here we go. His political spirituality. The sun stops on the 22nd. It dies in the skies, reflects over oceans. He walked on water. Didn't you see him telling me to be like he lived? He died for us, but there's no such thing as us. There's only one covenant. Feel me, show me, teach me. Since 325 AD, Constantine proclaimed himself a part of divinity, manipulations of Christianity, making us believe you can create order from anarchy. Place me at the bottom of the elitist hierarchy, the pyramids created by the Anunnaki, creating a Tower of Babel so we can reach God. We're not separate at all. It's all crystal clear. Human flaws portrayed in a concept of divinity. Is politics intertwined with spirituality? Is politics intertwined with spirituality? Galaxy so far away, we intertwine planetary, cosmic, stargate to seek. Breach walls of society, spread word to the masses, exude gases, volcanic ashes, cosmic element irrelevant to the reason why we will control your mind. We're words of divine originality, originally believed to be one of these free rebels of humanity. It's a fallacy of superficial promises of rules and laws. Find the meaning for a truer cause. Scriptures and prophecies of the second coming of God. The new age was never meant to be hard. The rise in the feminine energy is due to us becoming brothers, one with a terrestrial mother. No more Jehovah Witness knocking on my door. No more street corners, media manipulation and gore. No more street corners, hookers and gore. So until that day arrives, I will concentrate my thought and my manifestation of one love and rhymes. Thank you. So this one is now, this one's called Atlantis, and this is about the unity consciousness and coming back into one. So are we one yet? Going back to source. No remorse will reinforce the course that we all endorse. Unconditional love. It's the highest vibration, a gift from above. Desolation or separation, we must be the ones to say this is enough. You see, the third dimension, man, it was meant to be tough. There is no captivity, so unlock the cuffs, move away from hate and begin to trust. Our thought shift the Earth's Christ into a straight axis. Just like in Atlantis, stop causing damage and learn to manage self-realization. When people start to vanish, we change our intentions and join the like-minded souls in the fifth dimension. What is it that you envision for the future incarnations? The Christ consciousness has arisen. Tear the perception of being in a prison, this industrial system, slumber of opposites, duality where we get lost and forget how to achieve liberation. The curiosity won't last for long at all. As we move to the aquatic age, break free from the third dimensional cage of limitations, Freemasons being misplaced in this illusionary reality, governing authorities, there will be no more war. Co-create a love ambassador, open the doors. Life isn't supposed to be a chore. No getting on your knees, worshiping entities from the floor. The message is simple, man. We don't need to know anymore. We are the ones that we've